as we talk about online instruction, I wanted to walk us through making a score follow video, which can be useful in your instruction as you work with choirs, maybe even bands and other disciplines, as we're teaching virtually at the moment. And a score follow video allows us to do two things. One, we don't have to send PDF copies of our music to our students, which can get us into some copyright issues. And number two, our students can just have one device as they follow along with us, rather than having to have the music open on an iPad and then have their phone or their computer to be on the call with us. But we can all just be looking at the same thing at the same time, which is great as a teacher. And so the first thing you'll need to create this score follow video is a PDF copy of the music, hopefully a pretty clean copy. What you want to do is make JPEG pictures of each individual system. Now, if I tried to put this whole 8.5 by 11 piece of music on the screen, it's going to be hard to see. It's going to be super small, and so we want to scale it down into more manageable sections. Now, you can do this in your video editing software. They do have ways to crop pictures in there, but I kind of like to work in an assembly line fashion and kind of do everything I need to do for this particular thing, and then move on to editing the video, and I think it just kind of organizes you a bit better. And so what we can do is we can just simply take a screenshot. I'm sure you all know how to do that. And this is a system I'm talking about, right? Just one line of piano and choir music. You can see why it gets a little more challenging with a band if you have a larger score, but for choir, it's a simpler process. And so I'm just going to take a screenshot of that system, and then I would do the same with the next system and so on for each page. Now, the only thing I would say, the screenshot, it shows up on my desktop, but you can see it's 132 kilobytes, so it's not that big of a file. Now, when I normally do this myself, I use Photoshop, or you can use other free software that comes with your computer. But I open the PDF in that photo editor and then crop it down and save it as a JPEG. And you can see as I've done that, it makes a larger file size, so 365, more than double the size of the screenshot. And so it's just going to come a little bit clearer, especially as you're zooming in. You can see the screenshot starts to get a bit grainy, whereas the cropped picture in my photo editing software looks a lot better. So like I said, you can just take a screenshot if that's what you know how to do, and it's super simple and it's not going to be the end of the world, but you get a little bit better quality if you do it in your photo editing software. So you can see I've got page 1, system 1, page 1, system 2. So there's a little bit of labeling involved, but like I said, you've kind of set yourself up to then make the video editing side of things a lot faster rather than doing this in the video software. So once you have all of your systems ready to go, you can open up your video editing software. I normally use Premiere. It just gives me a little bit more capabilities, but you can do this in iMovie, which is what I'm going to show you today, or similar software that you might have on a PC. So the next thing you're going to need is an MP3 of the demonstration track. And a lot of our Salvation Army music, they put out demo tracks for all the new music, and so you have all this at your fingertips, really. And so you can see I put the audio track into iMovie, and it's down here on my timeline. And now I'm going to take all those systems and just drag them over here as well. And so they should be in order because I've labeled them that way. So I can drag this down here. Then you just have to come up here to the crop, because I think typically it just does this Ken Burns thing, but I'm just going to put fit. So you'll have to do that in each of your pictures. And then if I drag it back, you can see it's ready to go. And then I just follow along with the music. Now that's about where that line finishes, so I need to drag my picture out, and it just does it automatically, right? And so I want to get, as close as I can, and then put my next piece of music, my next system right here at the end of that one. And then I got to go back and do that crop thing here, get rid of Ken Burns, but just do fit, right? And so I'm just going to listen to the music and line it up with the track as I go. And drag the music longer if it needs to be, or shrink it down if it's too long. Now you can do like little transitions if you want. Probably the most popular one would be like page curl to make it look like you're following, right? So I can put that right there between these two. But I don't know, to me it's just a bit distracting. So I don't really do transitions like that. I just kind of let it go without transitions so their eye can follow it quickly. There are, of course, some higher tech ways to do this. You can add in systems so they can see the next system coming and things like that, but it just really takes a lot of time and this is already pretty time intensive as it is. So I think this is kind of the simplest way you can do it for now. And then the other suggestion I would have for you is go ahead and export your full video, which has the full run through, which is great. But what I've done also is, after I've done that, then I'll go ahead and kind of find the first section of the piece. It might be verse 1, and I'll delete everything after that, and then I will export just that verse. And then I'll, Control Z to undo all that deleting, and do verse 2 and delete what's around that. Just export verse 2. Control Z and undo that, and then I'll go just section by section. So once you've done the whole video together, it's pretty easy then to go back and just export individual sections. And that way when you're running your rehearsal, you don't have to kind of scroll through the video to find verse 1 or to find the chorus that you want to work on, but you have those individual videos. And so I can kind of show you in this. Once I've put it all together, you can see here's my full video that is 4 minutes long, but then I've got just verse 1, label the measure numbers, and you can see now it's just going to start 40 seconds of this particular section. Here's the coda, here's the first chorus, here's the bridge and the new key. So it just kind of labels all the different sections of the piece, so you can pull those up in your video conference and be ready to go quickly rather than scrolling through the whole thing. So this is a time-intensive project, particularly with the learning curve of editing the photos, editing the videos, and that kind of thing. But after a while, it'll probably take you about 30 minutes to an hour to put together each piece you're working on. So maybe a little more time than you normally prepare for rehearsals, but at the same time, you're listening to the piece a lot more, you're viewing the music as you put together the clips. And so it's allowing you to kind of prepare as well and figure out what you're actually going to need to work on. If you're not into video editing and you don't have that skill set, you can simply just show the music and scroll through it and press play on your audio recording. So there is that as well, and I've seen some rehearsals like that. But this just gives you a little more preparation and have things queued up right away. So I'd encourage you to give this a shot and see if you can get the hang of it, and really put that investment into your choir or the other music groups you're working with during this time, so that you can still have some interaction and have some rehearsal and continue music making together in that fellowship. Well, since a lot of our teaching these days is done online, I thought I'd give you a behind the scenes tour of Zoom and how it's working as a presenter. And sometimes you have to troubleshoot for those folks that are joining you, so let me just tell you about a few of the functions here. In the top right, you'll see speaker view, which looks like this, and it's going to put one person, whoever's talking, right in the center of your screen, and then the next person that talks, it hears them and it moves them. So there's a lot of moving around with that particular approach. I like gallery view. You can kind of see everybody who's in on the meeting, and if there was 15, 20 people, they'd all be on this screen together with us. If there was a lot more, then they would give multiple screens and I have to scroll between, but at least I can see a large number of folks that are in on the call and make sure that everybody's kind of on board with what's happening. Now, another thing I like, and let me just show my video on my other screen here, is you can pin videos. So let's say I've asked Matt Broom here a question, one of my students, and I want them to answer. Well, I can click these three dots, I can pin their video, and then it brings them to the forefront on every single person's screen. So we can see that person. Then I can unpin it, and it takes us back to whatever view you want. Okay, so that's a cool thing you can do if you have a particular person you want everybody to see at the moment, or you can pin your video as the teacher if you want them to see you as well. Another thing I found out rather late is that you got to mute yourself, and you got to come down here and unmute yourself, and it does give you a little shortcut. One of the cool things I found is that if I press, while I'm muted, if I press the space bar, you can see it temporarily unmutes me. So it works kind of like a walkie-talkie. And if I want to talk to everybody, I hold the space bar, I lift it up, and I'm muted again. Chat is a really cool function. What you probably want to do though, and since it's only two folks, I don't have this option, but you'll see a third option or a fourth option pop up that says everyone publicly and privately. Now to make sure that we're not selecting that, because that allows all your students to then chat with each other, private conversations. If you're working with younger students, there could be some bullying and that kind of thing involved. And so if they're going to chat, I'd encourage you to do everyone publicly, so at least everybody knows what's going on. Or you could set it so that they can chat with no one. You might want that, or with the host only, so then they can just chat with me if they have a question or something's up. I'd encourage you to do the chat, because some students don't like to talk or hear their voice, but they'd prefer just to type over there and I'm kind of that way myself, so I can understand that. Screen sharing is going to be something you use very frequently in your teaching. I just encourage you as you get started to go to advanced sharing options there and make sure that it says only host. Alright, if you say all participants, then anyone in on your call can share their screen, and you might get into a little bit of trouble depending on who's joining your call there. So make sure it's only you that can share your screen, and you're taking care of that. So let's just go back to our score read videos. I've got Shout Hosanna that we might be working on in this rehearsal. And I've got the full video, and then I've got different sections of the piece. So let's just say I want to work on the verse 1 with them. I'm going to pull up my video, and then I'm going to come to share screen. And when you can see that all these different options. So I can share QuickTime, anything else that I had open if I want to share my email with them, or even the music itself. But I'm just going to click QuickTime Player. And as I do that, I'm also going to click Share Computer Sound, okay? Because if I don't, then they're only going to see the video but not the sound. And so now when I press play, everybody's seeing that. Yeah, so everybody can see that, and then I just click Stop Share when I'm ready to do that. Now, if you come up here to the top where it says Stop Share, and you hang out there for a while, then it's going to give you some other options there. One I want to draw your attention to is Annotate. Now, Annotate works, and your students will see this on their screens as well, depending on your settings. But Annotate is great for you as the teacher, because I can then come in. Right now I'm doing Draw, and I can select, what I want my pencil to look like. I can select color. Right now it's red, and I can say, watch out for this word right here, reconciled. It's kind of a tongue twister, so be ready for that. Watch this interval. So I can circle things, I can add text. You have a lot of different options, and then I can clear it all whenever I'm ready to do that. The other thing I'd point your attention to is this More option here. You might want to disable attendee annotation. So what that does is that means that only me as the teacher can annotate now, which is probably your best bet. There are some occasions when maybe you want your students to annotate, especially if you're working with some younger students, and so you can turn that back on for a few minutes if you're doing some theory, or hey, can someone circle the C in the bass clef, and you can get them involved. However, there are some dangers to that, because the students can draw anything and it can get inappropriate. So I would recommend that you disable attendee annotation for the most part, but there might be times where you want your students to circle different things. But here's another thing you can put to show names of annotators. So now if it's enabled and I'm coming over to my phone, I'm going to circle whatever the teacher just asked me, but you can see my name pops up, so then you can see at least who was responsible for the drawing. But just be careful. Like I said, most of the time I would disable that for your attendees, so that way just the teacher is the one that's doing the drawing. But definitely a cool option for you as a teacher. Well, I did mention that perhaps you don't have the skill set or the time to make these score follow videos. Well, you can just simply share the demonstration recording through iTunes or another media player, and just share the actual PDF document with them and scroll through. And so that's an option for you as well. But just make sure that, I'm going to share the PDF document here, but make sure that you've selected Share Computer Sound, because otherwise they're not going to hear your iTunes music playing as well along with it. So I'll click Share. Now everybody is seeing this document, but I'm going to press play on iTunes, and then I can just scroll through with them as the music changes. Not quite as high tech, but there's an option for you if you don't have the time or the capabilities to kind of get the score read videos. One other thing I'd point your attention to is Breakout Rooms. Okay, we've used these quite a lot. If you're doing band or you're doing choir, you can do full group stuff, but you don't get a chance to really hear people, okay? Because as we're doing these Zoom calls, everybody can't be unmuted, or it's just going to be chaos. Everybody's going to be delayed. And so as I teach, I'm unmuted, but I ask all the students to be muted, and they sing along from their homes, but I don't hear them. And so the breakout rooms is where you can hear people a little bit better. And so this is what I would do sectional. So I can send my sopranos, my tenors, my altos, my basses to different rooms and hear them on a more individual basis. And so you would just need to make sure you have a leader that's going to kind of help lead those, and then you as the overall group leader, you can pop in and out of those breakout rooms. I've gone ahead and named them. I can rename them if I want, but I've gone ahead and named my rooms. And right now it's going to be pretty easy, right? If I click assign, I'm going to assign Matt Broom to the soprano section. But let me tell you, typically you're going to have 20, 30, 40 people here, and so it's going to be kind of a nightmare to assign people. And so I would just encourage you to have some kind of game ready to go or a video ready to go, something to kind of keep the time, because it's going to take you a few minutes to get everyone assigned. And then I'm going to open all the rooms, and then Matt's going to get an invitation to join the room. Now I'm in the main room by myself, but as a leader, I can then go over here and join the soprano room, or I can join the altos if we have more people or whatever. Now, in my opinion, it's easier to actually assign people to the breakout rooms once you've opened them, which is kind of counterintuitive because you don't really want to open the breakout rooms until everyone's assigned. But perhaps you could assign a handful of people, then open the rooms and assign everybody else, because once you've opened the rooms, then you'll see the option for every single participant to assign them or move them to a room. So you can just click on people and you know your participants, you know where they're supposed to go, rather than clicking on alto and seeing 40 names and scrolling through all the guys and trying to figure out where your altos are. Well, this way you just see individual names, you can assign them. So to me it's a lot easier to assign once it's open, and then me as a leader, I can then join whatever room I want. So if I was going to the sopranos, there would be my soprano leader and my other students in there, and I can check in on them, and then I can leave their room, or I can click on breakout and join another room. So at this point I'm just hopping between all these different rooms and seeing who's in it. Now if I want to leave the room altogether and go back to my main session, I have that option. Do not click end meeting for all, because that will obviously end the whole meeting, but I just want to click leave breakout room. That's going to take me back to the main session. No one's in there right now. But this is important because let's say that you've opened the breakout rooms, but other people have joined your meeting and they're kind of in the waiting room, or they haven't been assigned to a breakout. You're not going to know any of that if you're floating around within the breakouts, unfortunately. So you do need to come back to this main room from time to time. The other cool thing is I can broadcast a message to all. So I could say, don't forget to work on the chorus section, and that's going to send it to everybody, leaders, students, everybody. Or I could say we're going to close this meeting in 2 minutes, wrap it up. And then when I close the breakout room, it's going to give them 60 seconds to come back in, or they'll get a message on their screen that just says leave now, and they can leave and come back in immediately. I think that's a good bit of what we've used Zoom for, and some of the cool features to it. I would just say have a lot of backup videos ready to go, right? People are going to join at various times, and you don't just want it to be dead as people come in. So you could have a video playing, a game, even just some audio playing to set the atmosphere. Like I said, you don't get a whole lot of interaction with Zoom because everybody can't talk at the same time, everybody can't sing, definitely can't play the horns at the same time. And so we found, like, at the end of our meetings, we just unmute everybody and we can have a good time together just in that fellowship. There's also some other functionality. If you're under participants, you have some options here with each participant. You can ask them to start their video. We found that a lot of students like just to have their picture up and not a video, but then we don't know if they're actually engaged, or if they're watching TV, or if they're at, getting their hair cut or whatever. So ask them to be engaged that way. You can rename them if they've put something crazy and you want to make sure that you know who they are. You can do that for them. You can even put them in the waiting room, and then you can send them a message to the people in the waiting room. I put you here because you're doing this. That could kind of be your warning place. Don't do that again, or I'm gonna have to kick you out, and then you can let them back in. And then if you do need to remove somebody, then you just remove them, and then as it says, they won't be allowed to rejoin the meeting. So you have some options there. You can mute everybody, and then you can click this if you want them to have the ability to unmute themselves or leave it off, and then only you can unmute them. If you want to unmute all of them, click that button, and then they're going to get a message, and then they'll have the option to stay muted or unmute themselves depending on what they want to do. It is a lot to take in if you've never done it before, but we're all learning at the same time, so I'd encourage you to give it a shot, especially with your core groups. They'll be very forgiving, just knowing that you care enough about them to try something together. I'd encourage you to have a co-host with you that can also have some of these functionalities. They can mute people, they can let people in from the waiting room, but it's hard to do everything by yourself, and so I'd encourage you to have a co-host. Maybe it's your assistant leader or something like that that can help you with some of these things that we've been going through. A lot of cool things that this allows us to do now. It's not as great as an in-person rehearsal. Like I said, people are mostly muted during it, but it's a great option for us during this time, and certainly gives us some options going into the future, even once we're able to meet in person again, that we want to probably take advantage of. So hope you found this useful. But this is how we've been doing a lot of our rehearsals, and we're learning as we go as well. So we'll let you know if we find out anything new, and you share with us as well. But thanks for watching.
Come on, let's do it together. Come on. Tell your neighbor really quick. Get together. Mama, daddy, everybody. Come on, army of God. Here we go. Chosen. Chosen to be a soul. Chosen. Chosen to be.
So I'm going to share the video with you, and the first time through, again, we have to mute ourselves, otherwise we're going to be delayed, but mute yourself and sing along, and you can kind of scroll through the people's faces and see who's singing with you, and really see who's worshiping with you tonight as we sing these great hymns of the church. Now you'll notice when I share my screen, if you're in the mode where you're singing everybody's faces, then all the pictures are going to be on the right. That might cut off your music, so if you're on a computer, you might need to grab it and pull it down to the bottom of your screen so it's not getting in the way. So on the first time around, if you want to hum along, that's okay, and then we'll play it again and you can sing full voice, again muted. But here is verse 2 where we just started. If I was to sing this, I would ask my choir to do longer phrases. Right here, where I have this rest, I'd probably have the guys sing through that. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness. If we just want to do 2-bar phrases, I might not push us to do 4 or 5-bar phrases, but at least get rid of that rest there. And then on the next page, the same thing, right? This gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save. Yeah, and so all these spots, a little down here, till on the cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. So we're going to kind of push through all those spots rather than doing those choppy phrases. One other consideration as we sing it through this second time is, ladies, you have to be responsible for your own rests. And so right here, you cut off on beat 3 where the guys cut off on beat 2, okay? So don't give in to the guys, but have some independence. And there's a few spots where you have stuff like that. Okay, we're going to skip ahead to verse 3 just to address when we finally have some harmonies all together, okay? And we don't need to go over that first section, but then at measure 35, we got some harmonies. And it goes pretty high for the top tenor and top soprano, so be ready for that. But really, we need to listen to these inner parts, okay? So let's start with the ladies there. Philip at pick up to 36. Then we resolve. Yeah, that's enough. Okay, so yeah, obviously we all know the melody on this one. So Phil, if you could play the middle part the best you can there, because I think that's going to be the hard one to grab onto as it leaps around. Yeah, so sometimes it's just hard to read and follow where the part goes. But the middle part does have a lot of those suspensions. Da, da, da. You have some nice juicy parts you really want to lean into. Da, da, when you have those suspensions in the resolution. Now down to the guys. Play the top tenor for us to start. And then add the bass to that. So do the outermost parts there on the bass clef. Yeah, so basses, you have to be real confident in those leaps, like in measure 37 here. Now, luckily, this is just the octave jump, but now, again, just like with the ladies, this middle part is going to be crucial. If you're a tenor 2, bass 1, why don't you try to sing along with Phil on that, okay? Yeah, so that one measure that kind of messed me up was getting to the C in measure 38, I think it is. Da-dee-da-dee. So that's our harmony part. Let's see if we can sing verse 2 along with our recording now, okay?
What Daniel had been expressing was his freedom to worship in a place of captivity, resulting in, surely, it was certain death. But we know different, don't we? We know the rest of the story. That night, in the midst of the lion's den, in that prison where he was meant to die, Daniel had freely worshipped God. That is astounding when you think about it. One of the things that we're lamenting, we as a society are lamenting right now, is our loss of freedom. Our freedom to do what we want, when we want to, where we want to, and for goodness sakes, without masks. And what we feel like is that freedoms have been taken from us. And so for us, let's not mistake the loss of certain liberties as a loss of freedom, as a loss of freedom to worship God. Because tonight, we're together. Now, we may not be in the same room as we've been accustomed to doing and not even thinking twice about it for so many years, but we're together. And tonight we're able to worship together. Now, a couple of times I was glad, Matt, you didn't press that unmute button earlier, because it wouldn't have been very pretty what was coming through the microphone. But that doesn't matter, does it? We are worshiping together. There is a freedom in what you're doing. And by the way, Matt, thank you so much for doing this. I'm very grateful that you and your team have done so much to enable this level of worship. I mean, it's been a remarkable ability that we've had, and I thank you for that. So tonight, as we continue, let us realize that we are free. This is a freedom that we have to do the things that God expects of us. So let's continue tonight to worship Him.
When we get to the final chorus, it's kind of what I'm going to call a shout chorus. So 113, right here, we start off exactly like we were in the last chorus, right? We're all together, 4-part harmony. But then right here, the men take over the melody. He is worthy, He is worthy, He is the great and mighty one. While you take over the melody, the ladies have, He is worthy, yes, He is worthy. Okay, so Phil, can you play right here, measure 115 for the ladies, like this response they have? Yeah, so a lot of fourths and fifths in there. But yeah, the alto is pretty simple. He is worthy, yes, He is worthy. So stay on an F for the most part. And then play the soprano part for us. Have to go a little bit high up to that E flat. And then come in at the next measure, both parts, measure 117, the great and mighty one. and then right back to it. Like 121 is an exact repeat of 113. Try to sing along muted with Phil playing the piano there at 115 on your response. Count them in, Phil.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But yeah, so this is that chorus that we just learned. Here it is. Well, let's just pray together, and then after that, you can unmute yourselves and hang out for a little bit like we always do. But thanks for coming back. Good to see you guys, and let's pray together and call it a night.